Hi everyone, this is Greg Silva. Today we're going to do another segment on teaching techniques and teaching strategies. The term we're going to use today is downtime. I'm going to talk about downtime in the class and how it can be related either to structure and curriculum or just classroom presentation. Downtime is any time that the students are not actively doing something in class. So it could be where the kids are just sitting and listening to a lesson. It could be when someone's taking a turn and they're sitting down waiting for their turn. It could be if they're in a line doing kicks and punches and they have to wait till the bag's free so now they have their turn. So that's downtime. If they're not actively participating in class, we call it downtime. What happens during downtime is a couple of things. One, the child loses focus, especially if it's a child. With adults, it's a little bit different. They can keep themselves busy, but kids lose focus. I remember Paul Garcia doing an instructor college in Virginia one time. He was talking about downtime, and all of a sudden the kids are sitting down, and all of a sudden they say, "Yeah, sir, pay attention." And the kid just looks around and goes, "Oh, sorry, I was just talking to Batman." So, in other words, the joke was that kids lose their attention, they start thinking about something else. So again, downtime can happen for a couple of reasons. One, it's the structure of your class. So you may have a white, yellow, and orange belt class. You're the only instructor on the floor. Kids get out. So now you say, okay, we all can do the warm-ups together, but then I got to spend some time with the white belts. So yellow and orange belts, they can just practice on their own. And then I'll practice a little time with the yellow belts, and then they can practice and go with the orange belts, and they'll learn something. These guys will just practice on their own, and then I'll go back and repeat that. We call that type of teaching spinning plates. In other words, like a circus, when you see someone spinning a plate and then spinning another plate, then all of a sudden the other one slows down, you got to run up and spin it, and then you get the next one. That's a class of spinning plates. If you're doing that, there's a lot of downtime. The simplest remedy is to go to a rotating curriculum. And if you're not on a rotating curriculum and you are having this challenge, this short video is not going to be long enough. This is something you should be calling one of the coaches at United Professionals and get some extra help. Another type of problem could be a segment of your class you're doing sparring. Okay, now it's important sparring, everyone learns the rules, and we always assume that when we're watching sparring, we're also learning. So in most cases, when I go to school, they'll have a ring set up. They may have two rings set up. Kids are sparring, they take their turn, everyone else is sitting down. Two more kids get up and they do the same thing. The challenge is the kids watching, as much as you would like them to be learning and studying the other fighters and their strategies, they're not doing that. They're off into a different zone right now, thinking about a video game, thinking about what happened in school, what they're going to do after martial arts class. So we call that downtime. I remember when I had a school in Connecticut a long time ago, and I was teaching class, and I had the exact same thing, and I had windows, and parents used to park in front of the windows, and I had one dad watching class. After class, he came in, he looks at his watch, goes, "You know, Mr. Silva, I was watching Kenny take that class. Out of 45 minutes, he was only active for 6 minutes." Well, was that true? Well, the class was active, but Kenny wasn't active, so that dad was absolutely right. So from that point on, I made sure that if I do have two kids sparring, the other kids aren't sitting and watching, but they could be practicing sparring techniques. So if I'm teaching on one side and Mr. Hall is teaching on the other side, I may have two kids sparring and four kids judging. Same time, Mr. Hall has the other 20 kids, and they're actively practicing their techniques to make them better sparrers. So there's no downtime even in sparring. I was at another school recently, and this was a structural problem. They only had two instructors on the floor. They had about 20 kids, and so they wanted to do pad drills. So there's like 10 kids in each line. By the time the 10th kid gets up into line, the kids who went first and second, that's downtime for them. They're already thinking about something else. They're no longer engaged in the class. So I suggest if you do something in lines, you break it up so you have no more than 5 kids in a line. That's going to go pretty fast. Also, when you're doing line drills like that, try not to get too much into instruction. So if one child comes up to the pad, he's having a little more difficulty, and now you have to teach this kick from scratch. That's a lot of downtime. You're helping that one child, but the other kids in line are just kind of sitting or standing waiting for their turn. Sure, you can tell them to do jump jacks. Sure, you can tell them to do a little stretching or whatever. But at the same time, the parents watching are paying good money to have their kids learn in class, see their kids just doing push-ups and sit-ups while this one child is getting all the attention. So it's important those lines, we keep them moving. If you don't have enough instructors, grab a couple of the parents if it's kids class. Parents can hold the pads. It's also a good way to introduce the parents into coaching their child and maybe get them onto the floor so they're into adult class. Another reason downtime is lack of preparation. You're doing a class, you have your class plan, and for some reason it's not going over well, the kids are getting a little bit bored, you're spending a little much time, and it's downtime. Always have a plan C, D, E, and F. So if one thing's not going good, you're going on to the next plan, so you're constantly changing. You're actively engaging and watching your class and watching body language. You can tell if people are engaged and having fun. You can also tell when you start losing people. When eyes start wandering, all of a sudden their body language slumps, maybe they start talking to someone else. You can tell immediately when there's downtime. So make sure you have a class plan. When I used to teach Little Dragons, before I went to a 30-minute class, I had at least 10 things to do. I had a list, and I would keep that list handy. And I'd make sure if one thing's not working, I'm ready for something else. If the kids pick that up fast, I go on to something else. But I make sure I'm over-planned so I have plenty to do and plenty of backups in case the kids are learning quickly or they go into that dead time. So again, we want to make sure there's no downtime into class. We want to make sure we keep the kids focused, and you have to identify, am I just not planning classes correctly, or is it a challenge with my curriculum? Also, make sure you're using your assistants right on the floor. If I have an assistant and he's a good assistant, I don't want him just watching and helping. I'd rather break the kids up into two different groups. So his group's working kicks on the pads. My group's working self-defense. After 10 minutes, we swap groups. Kids get a different instructor. I get a fresh bunch of kids. It's really easy to keep them really active for my 10 or 15 minutes and make sure there's no downtime. So I hope this gives you a lot of ideas. You may want to go over this a couple times, take notes, especially at things that hit home. The last thing I'm going to give you today is when your instructors are in class, make sure they have a clipboard and they should be taking notes. If anything happens out of the ordinary, someone sprains an ankle, someone hurts themselves, someone starts crying, there's a little mishap in class, make sure you take those notes down. And before you go home at the end of the day, contact that student. Could just be a text. Hey, I saw you hurt your knee slightly. Make sure you put some ice on that. Keep it elevated. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So make sure everything's taken care of. Another thing that may come up, maybe you haven't seen someone in a long time. They came back to class. Well, before you go home that night, just call them and say, hey, I just got to tell you, it was great to see you back in class. If you're coming again tomorrow, I'd like to spend a little extra time with you. Make sure we get caught up. Make sure you're ready for stripe tests. I want you looking really, really sharp. So write down things that happen in class, either good or bad. And throughout the day, if there's 4 or 5 things that need attention, don't wait till the next day. Get them done that evening, either by writing an email. If it's not too late, call them, or at least text them. So no downtime in your planning and no downtime in your class. Have a great day.